Hello. You guys know that at Indiaspora we love people who create impacts. And I would like to introduce Vidya Raman, who is a partner at Sorenson Ventures, and she loves to create positive impacts on founders' journeys. And what she does here is she helps startups build for builders, which means she helps early startups to create tools for engineers. Vidya, take it.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you so much for Indiaspora for organizing this event and this amazing opportunity to be a part of this incredible panel. So very quick additional couple of lines I just want to share about myself. So I am a VC, invest in early stage startups, pre-seed through Series A, focusing on products for technical users. And today, the topic for our panel for the next 40 minutes or so is AI and cybersecurity. And we have some very illustrious people here who I have the privilege of being on the stage with. And in no particular order, I'm going to give a brief intro. So starting with the person at the other extreme, Sandeep Johri. Sandeep has spent many years in Silicon Valley as an executive, founder, strategic advisor, and investor. And since March 2023, Sandeep has held the role of CEO of Checkmarx, which is the global leader in application security market. And it is worth noting that Checkmarx is the leader in the AppSec space with revenue north of 200 million annually. And prior to Checkmarx, Sandeep served as the CEO of Tricentis, which he led for 7 years from an early stage startup to a global leader of continuous testing software solutions. And before that, Sandeep held senior management roles at HP, where he created and implemented the strategy to grow the software division from 600 million in revenue to category leadership, and eventually 3.5 billion in revenue. He's also the founder of several VC-funded security startups, such as Oblix, which was acquired by Oracle, Determina, and Blue Lane, both acquired by VMware. Sandeep, you're quite the veteran, but for today, we'd also love to ask you one other question, which is, what other languages besides English you speak?
Indian English, American English, a little bit of Hindi, a little bit of Marathi. I claim to speak them. My wife says I've lost all touch. So it's really down to 2 languages, which is Indian English, which is kind of British spellings, and then American English. I'm completely confused. So I need AI to help me with the multilingual side of things.
Love it. So I guess the task for all of us here is to figure out what English he's going to speak with us today in. All right, so moving on, Saket, who's the next person next to Sandeep, is the founder and CEO of Safe Security, which is a cybersecurity and digital business risk quantification platform. He's a computer science engineer by education. He founded Safe in 2012 when he was in his final year of engineering college. Oh my goodness, that is amazing. Safe was incubated in IIT Bombay and backed by Cisco's former chairman and CEO, John Chambers, so obviously needs no introduction. And Safe Security protects the digital infrastructure of multiple Fortune 500 companies around the world with its cyber risk measurement and mitigation platform. Saket is part of Fortune magazine's 40 Under 40, Entrepreneur magazine's 35 Under 35, Forbes magazine 30 Under 30, and so much more. Wow, I wish they could have a Forbes 80 Under 80. Maybe I'd have a shot someday. But Saket, so what other languages besides English do you speak?
Besides English, by the way, that introduction basically means I'm still at my first job. So I keep telling my team I'm not sure I'm employable outside. So please make sure I have a job, so do well. So that's the other downside of, starting from your dorm room. But apart from English, Vidya, I actually read and write in Bengali. I'm a big, I love Rabindra Sangeet, and I love all the good work that Rabindranath Tagore had done. So Bengali is the other language that I know a little bit about.
That is beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Last but not the least, we have Raji Baskaran, who's the founder and CEO of a startup in stealth. And hopefully she will divulge a little bit about what she's working on, we hope. Raji has an illustrious background herself. So Raji is a technology leader and entrepreneur. She's a veteran, having spent many years at Intel leading research and product, reporting to the Chief Technology Officer at Intel. She's an engineer by training and has a master's from Cornell and a PhD from UC Santa Barbara. She's also a proud geek mom. So I guess officially the only PhD, most educated person here on the stage. But today, though, Raji, we would love to know what other languages besides English you speak.
Just as a disclaimer, most educated is not PhD. PhD is just figuring out what you want to be when you grow up. Yes, languages. I am a very proud Tamil speaker, reader, writer, and recently mostly listener of 80s and 90s movie songs in Tamil. But I also speak a little bit of very bookish Hindi, or I used to. Some passable German at some point, and try to keep up with my kids in some Spanish, but mostly the only language I can speak for practical purposes is English. But for a lot of personal enjoyment, Tamil is my go-to language.
Awesome. I'm also a Tamil speaker, and if I may dare to say so, I will also say that your accent sounds a little Tinglish, which is Tamil and English.
Absolutely.
I can recognize one when I
Yes,
hear it.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. All right, so let's jump right into business here. This first topic is mostly for Saket and Sandeep. And this is around the adoption of AI in the enterprise. Now, both of you have customers who are in the Fortune 500, really large companies who we all here have wanted to do something to do with AI. Somehow, they all woke up one fine day, heard about ChatGPT, and decided we have to do something. So they've been doing something, we hear. So would love to get a sense for what are your customers doing with AI, and especially because you're leaders of cybersecurity companies, how has that basically affected the threat landscape? So if you can touch upon, maybe I can help you resolve who goes first. Sandeep, if you could start.
So we have a security solution. We focus primarily on application security, as you mentioned. So we work a lot with the developers. I'll talk to mostly the dev environment. And we've all read that AI, one of the great use cases, is writing code. And developers have been early adopters of AI with Copilot, with ChatGPT Copilots and Azure Copilot. So we see incredible adoption of Copilot in the dev team with all our customers. We sell primarily to large enterprises, and that's what I'm referring to. I think the penetration of Copilot, use of Copilot in the smaller enterprises or in Silicon Valley will be even higher than in the enterprise. But I've never seen, I shouldn't say I've never seen, it's one of the rare instances where I've seen CIOs adopting a new technology rapidly, like literally within months of all the Copilot announcements. We had CISOs, meaning the security officers, saying, my CIO is breathing down my throat, down my neck, to adopt Copilot, to give Copilot, and he's asked me, what do I do about security? But he's going ahead anyway. He or she's going ahead anyway. So that adoption of Copilot for auto generation is extremely widespread from my vantage point.
Thank you, Sandeep. So when CSOs came and told you this, and CIOs, it looks like they went away and adopted it anyway before the CSO could put a stamp and say, you're authorized to do so. How has that now transpired? Like, are CSOs able to keep tabs on how Copilot is being used and what is happening to the lines of code that are being generated?
No, not yet. I think it's one of those things which many of you, I'll date myself by this, but I remember when the browser first came out, I used to work at Silicon Graphics, and literally overnight, every CIO said, people are going to download the browser and use it anyway. I might as well jump in and enable that. And there were all kinds of concerns. So it's the same thing with Copilot. They know that The developers will do it anyway if they don't allow them. So the wiser companies, the wiser CIOs are actually enabling their developers, meaning purchasing Copilot, getting licenses to Copilot. They would rather have them use Azure Copilot because it comes with some guardrails, as opposed to then people saying, I'm going to use whatever I want. So despite the concerns, given the momentum, the tsunami of Gen AI and the pull from the end user, in this case, the developer, they're not resisting it. To your question of what are the CISOs doing about it, they're calling us saying, what do we do? And we, for example, have a product that allows, think of it as a gateway product, where when someone's using ChatGPT, Copilot, or Azure, any Copilot, before you accept auto-generated code, we can scan to make sure it's clean. Clean meaning it's vulnerability free, or we can tell you, this is auto-generated code, but don't assume it's secure, it's clean. Here are the vulnerabilities we've discovered. Please fix them, and then accept it into the company. So the CISOs at least can put some guardrails around stuff. So it's a bit of a catch-up. I literally had one customer, just to net it out, I had one customer, we did like a 200, 300K deal, which was a decent-sized deal for us. And we typically take a year or two before you go and upsell. Literally within 6 months, it became $1.5 million deal because the CISO said, I want to expand. This is not Copilot, this is what we got, because my CIO just told me to give Copilot to everybody, and I'm concerned about the code that's coming in. It'll be very insecure. So that just gives you a sense of the urgency. I wish it was true for every single enterprise. It's not, but there are plenty of examples where the CISOs have said, okay, it's happening. Let me see how best I can deal with it. It's not a solved problem. There are lots of, I'll talk later as we get along.
Sure, I mean, this is fascinating. I think at least one takeaway for founders out here is that adoption of Gen AI is increasing the demand for products such as Checkmarx, and hopefully expanding the market for application security in general. So that's a great byproduct.
And people estimate, you've all read this, developer productivity will increase by 30%. What does that mean? Developers don't go home and sleep 30% more. To Manish's point, we're not going to be less busy. Think of it as 30, 40% more code coming into the enterprise. So from our point of view, you have 30%, 40% more code that needs to be scanned for security. So
totally.
At least for us, it's a net positive.
Absolutely. Saket, you work with very many large enterprises also. What are your enterprises' favorite Gen AI tools that you've seen, and where do you see some of the threat vectors coming in?
Certainly. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so couple of points there. First of all, when you look at Gen AI, and especially with enterprise, right, the way I like thinking about it, because after talking to so many chief security officers or chief information officers, initially there was this whole thing around, will AI replace humans? And there was a nice analogy that I first heard from Andrew Ng, which says that humans with AI will replace humans without AI, right? Now, I actually want to take that analogy slightly forward, of actually saying that, it's almost like in security products, at least that's the world I come from. Any security product with AI will replace any security product without AI. If I expand it slightly even further, any B2B product with AI will replace any B2B product without AI. And if I expand it even further, it's like any company with AI will replace a company without AI. Now, the reason I gave that analogy in a simple way, it started from a person, ended up at a company, you can take it even beyond that to governments, et cetera, is I think this is that realization, Vidya, that really came into the boardroom to say that, and there were so many very, 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 very smart, savvy CEOs, not others, who were actually talking about the fact that, in Geoffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm, you always have the 7% who are the visionaries and the early adopters, right? So you suddenly had the top CEOs in the world on the early adopter side saying that, look, we're going all in with AI. And that's really the reason why GenAI, of course, started with a massive promise with the usual stuff, I think, starting from writing cute poems till very, very useful in productivity till, writing code. But I think the big transformation that we start to see is that how do you use GenAI to actually do things, right? One is recommending code. What about generating code and executing that and actually making things happen? So that's where obviously 2024 is now being called the year of the agents, right? And that AI agent revolution, in my view, is really the future where you're getting the capability of, because GenAI 1.0 was very high cognition in terms of analysis, but analysis only step 0. What do you do with that analysis is where rubber meets the road, right? And I would say that's the big step that everybody is starting to talk about. I think it's where 2 years back GenAI was when people were talking about seeing things. People are now talking about doing things. So that's the adoption that I would say, at least the visionary CIOs and CISOs that we see saying that how much work can we do in a more efficient way, in a more automated way, using GenAI, using GenAI agents, Vidya.
That's very cool. And a quick follow-up, Saket, which is, so specifically as it relates to safe security, are there threat vectors that safe security is addressing given the GenAI adoption in your customer set?
Yeah, so first of all, we've actually, because we have a threat intelligence team of our own, because when we go to companies, just so that, some of you guys understand what we do, there are 4,000 cybersecurity products out there in the world, right? And they're phenomenal products, like Checkmarx, for example, right? And the problem with a lot of CISOs is that typically a Fortune 500 CISO will have anywhere between 40 to 50 security products, right? That means 40 to 50 dashboards telling them what is red, amber, green. What is really red, what is really amber, what is really green is exactly what we do. Now, that just doesn't need 50 products to give telemetry into our product, which we do, of course, but we also look at the threat intelligence in terms of if you're a healthcare manufacturer or healthcare payer in the US, there are these threat actors which are attacking you. So we take your internal telemetry through APIs from over 120, 130 security products. We take external threat intelligence and we put that together with business context to say, what is your real risk? To your question about, do we see counter to GenAI focused attacks? We've been surprised. More than 90% of attacks that we have seen actually have started leveraging GenAI from the hacker side. So hackers are like getting very, very, very savvy, and that's also by design, because there is no policy of the company that they have to follow. So there are automated hacker toolkits in the deep and dark web which have become more scarier than ever, the DIY kits which are out there. So I would not even categorize attacks as GenAI attacks or non-attack. If there is an attack happening today, there is a 9 out of 10 chance that it has used some degree of GenAI. And that's the reason you need to fight fire with fire. That's the reason I tell CISOs that if you have a cybersecurity product in your environment and they don't have AI capabilities today or in their roadmap, you should question why do you even have that product in your security stack in the first place.
That is amazing. AI has become table stakes. That's
Absolutely.
one takeaway you're saying in all product category, particularly in cybersecurity.
And hackers.
And yes, because they have no rules to follow, cybersecurity is an amazing ammunition. So we have the good people have to have similar defenses too. And I think that's a great segue, Raji, to what you're working on. And we had the privilege of hearing a little bit about that. So could you tell the rest of the audience here about what problem you're addressing, who's facing that problem?
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity, and it's a great setup. And before I talk about what we are building, I just want to start off by saying that, like, in the general scheme of AI and cybersecurity, we can think of 3 buckets where everything falls. First is cybersecurity for GenAI, which is the example that Sandeep gave, right? Because GenAI is becoming the new operating system of business in various forms. And everywhere you go and touch the core and change it, you need to change the security model for that. You cannot just apply the previous generation security model into the current framework. And I think there's massive need and opportunity, hence for innovation and entrepreneurship there. The second group is using cybersecurity, using AI in current cybersecurity tools, which Saket was talking about. If you don't use it, because the other side, and that is because the speed, the quality, and kind of diversity of attacks is going to be aided by Gen AI. So if you don't have the defense system have all the same advantages, you are nowhere going to be near a match. And there, I think, again, there is massive opportunity. And I think there is a third category, which Saket also addressed a little bit, which not directly, but it's like, what are new threat models that are going to evolve because of generative AI? Especially because of democratization and basically low to no marginal cost of Gen AI. And that's total white field, like kind of big threats. I don't think we know the exact shape or size of it fully yet, but there are some inclinations of a few of them, and I'm very privileged to lead a company that we are semi-out of stealth mode called Project Karna, and I'll be happy to talk about it. Is one particular such new threat vector that is developing in the business context is real-time business identity compromise. And that's just a fancy way of saying a deepfake pretending to be one of your business colleagues, business partners in your online meetings or in your audio calls. And this, we have enough signals to know that the tip of the iceberg is being already peeking out of the water. And one of the biggest examples that I don't know if many of you in this audience are aware of, a public company based in, headquartered in London, but distributed all around the world, called Arup. They are an engineering services company. The Hong Kong finance head was duped to the order of 25 million USD, 200 million Hong Kong dollars, over one video call, where the CFO's deepfake, as well as some of his team's deepfake, came on this video call. And the main thing is, there was a very iffy phishing email, which many of our colleagues' product caught, and or the person actually was trained enough to ignore, but was not trained to not question the video link that was set as a follow-up, right? So in the sense that there are like, so this is the deepfake is enabled by Gen AI, but there are two other underlying forces, and I kind of think of this as like, a 2-year, a 5-year, and a 10-year wave, all overlapping to forming the tsunami. The 10-year wave is all the social media breadcrumbs we have all left behind. We don't have to be Taylor Swift or Biden to be able to find our audio and video snippets online. If you were a human, if you're a professional, and if you participated in panels like this, or gave talks like this somewhere, sometime, your audio samples and your video samples and your photos are online. And some of it we obviously put in voluntarily, right? So that's the first 10-year wave that's going on. Post-pandemic, we've just accelerated accepting remote, hybrid, and online working. And we're not going back, because that's become a distinct business advantage for the way we do business, for various reasons, various complex reasons. But nobody's going back where every check is going to be physically verified with the CEO and CFO in the next door office ever anymore, which means that we have to secure our online communication channels. And the last wave is the democratization, or making it super cheap to create these exact clones of people's audio and video. I think these three put together is a very big threat vector for businesses, and that's why we are hoping to build a solution to solve.
This is amazing. Raji, so you're going after a very wild problem, something that it looks like pretty much all of us will be contending with in our lifetimes. If I put myself in the shoes of a prospective customer who would want to buy your solution, how do you engender trust with them?
Absolutely. We are in very, very, very early days yet, right? And the proof is in the pudding, right? Proof is in the pudding, but also it's not a pure technology solution, because it's not a pure technology problem. As I mentioned, there are 3 waves that caused it. So the social media wave made us trust the digital avatars and personas of each other. But now that is being manipulated. It is being social engineered. So you need to bring social proof back in the solution. So selling is not only about showing some accuracy numbers of deepfake detection, but it is very important to have accuracy, but it's more than that, right? Number one is real-time nature. Can you catch it in the act? Because post-act cleanup is not as valuable as just stopping the attack in real time. So that's the first vector on how I engage value and bring value to my customers, which is real time. The second is the social proof. So the way we want to engage is we want to build this tool to work so seamlessly with your workflows that it doesn't erode the trust between two business colleagues, but actually strengthens them. Just because this Hong Kong scam happened, we don't want all the other finance heads of the 20 other countries that that company is based in never believe every call from CFO. That's not a good business outcome, right? So our solution needs to integrate multi-band communication and building actually trust back in the workforce in the remote way. So we think of it as not just addressing a technological problem, but a social communication and how you do business problem. And I believe that's like one of the biggest value I bring. And again, this is why this is not a pure CISO or CIO conversation. It's really an owner conversation at the CEO or like, the CEO operations level, COO. And I think everybody else is an enabler in the tool, but this is really very core to businesses' ability to function.
Absolutely, definitely concur with you on that, Raji. So we don't have a ton of time left, so let's speed things up a bit here. So the next topic we wanted to quickly touch upon, maybe Saket, if you can start off here. So Raji just mentioned how there's been this wave of democratizing the use of AI in building products. You also use AI. Can you share with all of us what are some of the challenges or surprises that you have seen despite the democratization of AI? Has anything surprised you at all about embedding AI in your products?
Yeah, so just to give you a perspective, we have a team of around 100 engineers, mostly based in India, and arguably some of the smartest engineers in the world, because 70% of the team would be ex-AWS, Uber, Spotify, Netflix, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I start from there is because it talks about the competence of engineers, which is pretty high in my team. When you've got the right competence, one of the decisions that we took 2 years back was we will never ever write APRD for a product feature which will not have an AI dimension to it. Like, you will just not do it. Like, today, AI is so deeply embedded into our product where you can literally go to any widget in our product and you can, it comes with a button. Like the moment you hover on it, there's an AI button that comes where you click on that and that automatically asks the question, or what is the meaning of this widget? What does that mean? So what, et cetera, et cetera. Now, to your question, the reason I started from there is it gives you a perspective that we've been through the journey of making mistakes and at the same time being reasonably successful in very, very, very deeply embedding AI into everything we do, right? In fact, last week I did a launch of a new mobile application called SafeX. It's available for anybody to download. You need to log in using your corporate email, not your Gmail, but it's on the App Store, iOS App Store, where using Gen AI, you can ask any questions and it gives you an answer in less than 2 seconds about cybersecurity. And this is what we do for our CISOs. Now, what we did, one of the big challenges was when we are building ways for CISOs to interact, because for us, it's like a browser moment. Because in the past, there are 40, 50 dashboards that a CISO will never go and log into. And they were manually stitching the data together from their VP GRC or somebody in their chief of staff, their head of data analytics, whoever, and actually talking about what the risk of the company is, right? Now, what we've done is with Gen AI, because we pull in telemetry from most, if not all of those 40, 50 products with threat intelligence and business context, now you can query in English anything you want to know. You want to know what's my risk of ransomware, how make me a board report, whatever, right? I mean, I read about the Clorox breach. Are we vulnerable from that? All of those questions now get answers in less than 1 second. But our big problem was hallucination. Because if I as a CISO, am asking what's my top risk, And every time it gives me a different answer, it's a very big problem, right? So one of the unique things we've done in that process is we actually use GenAI for our questions and not for our answers. And let me double click on what that means, right? As a CISO persona, because we are so close to hundreds of CISOs in very, very large companies, we created a list of 100 questions. It's an 80-20 rule, right? So 80% of the times, the CISOs will ask these 100 questions which are out there. We use GenAI to map, because for example, a question can be, what's my top risk? Somebody else can be asking, today tell me about my top risk. Somebody else might be asking, how do we look at the most important risks of our company? All the three questions are the same, right? But it can't be having different answers. So what we use is GenAI to understand the question and point it to that particular question. And then we have handcrafted answers, which is not GenAI generated, which is very, very, very clearly coded of saying, this is the format of the answer, and of course there are variables based on the scenario and the actual contextualization of the company. So we have those 100 questions. Now what happens if somebody asks, tell me where was Mickey Mouse found, invented, right? That's not a part of 100 questions. Then we use GenAI when it's not pointing to one of those 100 questions, and then it will go to the internet, scan it, come back with an answer, and you can use it like ChatGPT. So that was like one of the unique things we did, which our customers absolutely love, because now they can rely on the answer of what actually comes out from that, not just on the web, but also on the mobile application. So it makes it easy for them to be able to access data from 40, 50 tools with threat intelligence and business context at your fingertips. So that's one challenge and a solution that we came up with Vidya.
That's fascinating, Saket, and it's a very amazing insight also in that, yes, you want to infuse your products with Gen AI, but when you go through the experience of building and having your customers use the product, which you did, you come across these situations where you need to do all these the refinement of the UX and the experience, and so that all adds up to a great user experience. Sandeep, can you touch upon the same topic? Like you talked about the gateway aspect of one of your products. Can you touch upon some of your own AI or perhaps even generative AI building experiences and any associated challenges or surprises that you've had?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like an AI skeptic because I'm not. But I think, as they say in technology, we always overestimate the short-term impact and we grossly underestimate the long-term impact. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm about AI and its use, and in the short term, I think we are being over-optimistic, and I'll tell you why. I'll go back to something I'm very familiar with, just because it's I deal with this every day. Every enterprise is getting their developers to use AI to get that 30% promised benefit, and they're using ChatGPT and other co-pilots. The code that is auto-generated is very, very poor. It's like a fresh graduate engineer, not very experienced, cranking out code. So what are the problems with that? One, you can have vulnerabilities in that code. It's not secure and things like that. So there's that stage of things that are relatively easy to solve with tools like us, like ours and many others. And those systems will keep getting better, but it'll take time for them to be better and take time for them to be good enough where you can get to the point where Saket was saying that I'm not even going to look at the code. I have so much trust in it that I will generate it and run it automatically. We are a long ways from there. Long ways from there. Today, the code that is auto-generated is great, that comes fast, but you have to really put some human touch to it. That's just the kind of very basic, I'm giving that as an example of basic problems that you have in co-pilots, for example. Then you start getting into the more creative problems. There's the hallucination that Saket talked about, right? We have seen examples where a developer says, hey, give me an open source, blah, 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 package to do blah, blah, blah. And the Gen AI system doesn't exist a package for that. So guess what? In its true over-enthusiastic, true earnest, creates one out. Creates one. That's called a hallucination. It didn't do it maliciously, but it created an open source package for you because you asked for it. It's an enthusiastic helper. Now you think you've gotten an open source package, there must be a community and you use it. You have no idea that you're the only one, okay? That's another example of kind of things that start getting complicated. We've seen examples of malicious code into open source packages. So let's say there's a common open source package. You're a contributor, anyone can contribute. You contribute with malicious code instead of real contribution. And this is a real example. You change the name by one letter. The developer goes, looks for that package, an open source package, because 70% of the code developers use today is open source, right? And they didn't realize that instead of a package called ABC, they used a package called, or let's say the package is called ABCD, they used a package called ACBD. To the visual eye, it looks good. Oh yeah, this is the right one. You download it, now there's malicious code sitting in your thing. So we are trying to, begin to look for things like that. So these are just examples. There's subversion of LLMs. What if someone can fake when you're generating code, just in the code example, but this is true for everything about LLM. The hackers can start subverting the LLM, just like we subvert search engines with SEO. It's a positive thing, SEO, but there's also a negative subversion. So the same thing is happening there. So there's a lot of such challenges, new challenges that come up. Hackers are not like sitting out there. They're coming up with really creative things like deep fakes. That's a great example. But there are examples in literally every single use case where it's not just all rosy. There's lots of challenges of trust, of trusting the data, trusting the results. So, I just want to put some reality or some skepticism on that. Not to say that it won't have a huge impact. I think we are underestimating the long-term impact. If you as an example, go back and listen to all the visionaries from 96, 94, 95, including Bill Gates, who said, oh my God, the internet's going to be great, internet's going to be blah, blah, blah. Our life will be like this. All of them got it wrong. Having said that, it has had an incredible impact. None of us today can imagine what life would have been without our phone, without this, without that. So it's the same thing in AI. Everything we can pontificate about, this will happen, that'll happen. I don't think we know. Will it have a huge impact? Absolutely.
This is incredible, and especially, and you, it's also scary. I have to say on so many levels. Particularly the example of AI making up packages. I'm sure Raji would call it deep fake package factory or something like that. But in the more here and now, Sandeep, the cybersecurity industry is facing incredible amount of talent crunch, and also developers are having a hard enough time just keeping up with technology. Now, on top of that, they have to secure an increasing amount of potentially garbage code that AI is going to throw at them. I think you are uniquely well positioned to hold out this crystal ball amongst all of us here, just given the history you've had. How do you think this is going to impact the state of cybersecurity in the near term? With the kind of challenge we have, do you think cybersecurity is going to, are we going to face a lot of attacks that because is going to come due to the adoption of things like co-pilots? Are people going to apply brakes very hard? In the 12 to 18 months, how do you see this shaping up? Like if you compare it to the browser, perhaps history.
Yeah, 12 to 18 months, this is, it's security in general, cybersecurity, it's a cat and mouse game. Right? It's a cat and mouse game. It hasn't slowed the adoption of technology. It creates opportunities on both sides. It creates opportunities. When the browser came out, there was a new set of hacks that came up. Then everyone started putting stuff into the cloud. Well, there was a new set of hackers figured out how to exploit that. So, it's a cat and mouse game, right? Security is always a cat and mouse game. And it's a great opportunity because security vendors will keep, the hackers keep getting creative about how they want to hack, and AI, LLMs, RAGs, they're going to figure out ways of hacking that. Hacking meaning coming up of ways of subverting that. And our job as security vendors is to go look for the deepfakes, go look for the noise that is in the system. In our case, to look for security vulnerabilities in the code, look for malicious code in the code, malicious intent and code. So it's a cat and mouse game. I don't think it'll put a break, but I think there'll be fits and starts, right? People say, okay, I'm going to let all my developers use ChatGPT, and everyone's feeling great. And then there'll be a major flaw, a major break, issue, incident at one customer, and suddenly there'll be a break, but it's not going to stop the tsunami. The break will be like, oh God, we need to go pay Checkmarx $1 million.
I love that.
Because I need to make sure I'm checking the code before it. Before I was doing it without checking the code, now I'm serious. I should have listened to Sandeep and paid him $1 million. So it's,
Said like
it's
a
one of those
true
things. There'll be a
entrepreneur.
break for some time, but the tsunami ain't going to stop.
Absolutely.
You know?
It's a great way to end the panel. But let's do a quick lightning round. I think we have less than a minute remaining. There are many founders in this room. If you have a word of advice, maybe a line of advice to founders that are starting out now, can start with you, Sandeep. What would you tell them?
Jump into AI and be agile. Listen to your customers, and your company will be nothing like what you think it is going to be today. If you're agile, you'll get to the right spot in 3 years because it'll be different.
Amazing. Saket?
There's a saying, it says, a donkey in a spaceship still goes faster than Superman. What that means in a simple way is that AI is the spaceship which is out there. And it's almost like, if you were able to, and I'm not saying you're a donkey or I'm a donkey, but what I'm trying to get towards is that even like the bottom worst case scenario, if you're just doing the right thing, and this is the future, it's like electricity has been invented. Anybody who's not doing things with electricity will be a thing of the past. So if you do anything around those lines and then go in and then dream big, I think that's my tiny little advice that I can give to anybody.
Awesome. Raji?
We all agreed that AI is going to have a big, big impact, so I will actually change my ask to one for all the funders instead of founders. Fund more women, fund more people who don't look like you, fund more people because it's going to affect everybody in the world. So let's bring everybody to come and innovate to build the world we want to see.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You need to hallucinate, you need to subvert an LLM such that all investors only find your company.
We'll make it happen together.
Yeah.
Business model.
Yeah, let's fund
No
the
matter
company
what
that
the
does
question,
that.
like he said, the answer is always your company, you'll get funded.
Love it. That's amazing. Thank you all. Really
you.
amazing opportunity.